You see, when God tells you to move, He's not asking for a debate. He's not looking for your logic, your calculations, or your explanation. He's asking for your yes, and too many of us are delaying our destiny because we're waiting to understand before we obey. But let me tell you, obedience doesn't require understanding. That's not how God works. God didn't call you to understand the how. He called you to trust the who. And when you truly trust who He is, you stop needing all the answers. You stop needing clarity on every detail before you say yes. If you can explain everything God is doing in your life, then you're probably not walking by faith. You're walking by comfort. God will ask you to do things that make no sense in the natural, because He's trying to do something supernatural. And you can't step into the supernatural while being shackled to your need for control. That's why faith and obedience go hand in hand. Because faith says, I don't know how this ends, but I trust who sent me. Let me talk to you like family. Some of you are stuck, not because the door is locked, but because you keep asking God to show you the whole hallway. You want every light turned on before you take one step. But God says, take the step, then I'll show you the next. There's someone in this room right now holding back your yes because you want the plan. You want the strategy, the map, the guarantee. You're saying, God, tell me what's next and I'll move. But God is saying, move and I'll show you what's next. It's not about understanding. It's about obedience. It's about trust. Remember Abraham, God told him to go. No map, no GPS, no end address. Just go, and Abraham obeyed. Not because he knew where he was going, but because he knew who was sending him. That's faith, that's obedience, that's what God is calling you to today. Let me break this down even more. When you delay obedience until you understand, what you're really saying is, God, I don't trust you unless it makes sense to me. And that's not trust. That's control wrapped in spiritual language. You can pray all day, you can fast, you can go to church every Sunday. But if you keep saying, I'll obey when I'm sure, you're not living by faith, you're living by fear dressed up as wisdom. And the thing about God, He will intentionally ask you to do something that stretches your faith, something that forces you to let go of what you think you know. Because He's not just trying to get you to the destination, He's trying to build something in you on the way. Let's talk real life. Maybe God's telling you to forgive someone who doesn't deserve it, and your mind says, why should I? But your spirit knows, obedience is not about them, it's about you. Maybe God's telling you to walk away from that relationship, that job, that place, and you're thinking, but I've invested too much, I need a backup plan. But obedience doesn't wait for comfort. Obedience costs. It costs logic, it costs convenience, it costs pride. That's why not everybody can walk this path. Because obedience feels like foolishness until it becomes favor. You may look crazy in the moment, but when that blessing falls, when that door opens, when that healing comes, everybody's going to ask, how did it happen? And you'll say, I just obeyed God. That's all it takes. Tony starts pacing across the stage, looking directly into the crowd like he's staring into souls. His voice softens, but the weight gets heavier. You think you need more clarity, but what you really need is more courage. You think you're waiting on God, but truth is, He's waiting on you. You're not stuck because He's silent. You're stuck because you won't move. There's power in your yes. There's freedom in your yes. There's breakthrough in your yes. So today, right here, right now, don't try to figure it out. Don't wait for every detail. Don't hold back your obedience while you wait on comfort. Just obey God. Let me tell you something that might hurt a little before it heals. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. We love to tell ourselves, I'll do it, just not right now. I'm not ready yet. I need time to pray about it again. But let's be honest, a lot of us aren't praying. We're procrastinating. We're dressing hesitation up like holiness. We're saying, God, give me a sign, when he already gave the command. You don't need another confirmation. You need to make a decision, because every time you delay, you're saying, God, my timing is better than yours. And I don't care how good your intentions are, obedience that is postponed becomes disobedience in the eyes of God. We've been fooled into thinking obedience is just about action, but it's also about timing. God is not just telling you what to do, he's telling you when to do it. That yes he asked for, it was for now, not next week, not after you feel safe, not after you feel qualified. Not after your bank account hits a certain number, not after everybody agrees with you. Now, you see, God's instructions are tied to his timing. And when you miss his timing, you miss the power attached to the moment. He's not obligated to bless a delayed step. He'll still love you, yes, but delayed obedience can cost you momentum, opportunity, and even people you were supposed to bless by your obedience. I know this isn't the part that makes people shout, but it's the part that sets people free. Some of us are still stuck in cycles, not because we lack faith, but because we lack follow-through. We said yes in worship, but no in practice. We cried in prayer, but we stayed seated when God said stand up and go. And now we're wondering why the breakthrough hasn't come. Let me help you. Breakthrough doesn't follow tears. It follows obedience. There's someone in here right now who's been sitting on an instruction God gave you 6 months ago. A year ago, maybe more, and you've been telling yourself it's not the right time. But let me ask you, when will it be the right time? When you're comfortable, when you've figured it all out, that's not obedience, that's control. Tony leans in a little closer, his voice low, filled with conviction. Delayed obedience always costs something. It cost Jonah a storm and 3 days in the belly of a fish. It cost the children of Israel 40 years in a wilderness that should have taken 11 days. How many years have you been wandering because you keep saying, not yet, God? God's not waiting for the perfect version of you. He's just waiting for the willing version, and when he tells you to go, he already knows you're not ready, but he's saying go anyway. He'll equip you on the journey, but he's not going to argue with your excuses. He's God. He's not obligated to explain. Obedience is not a negotiation. It's not God, I'll do it if. It's God, I'll do it even if. Even if it costs me. Even if I'm scared. Even if I don't have support. Even if nobody claps for me. You see, real obedience is instant. And it's costly. That's how you know it's real. If it's easy, it's probably not obedience, because obedience will make you walk away from what feels good so you can walk into what is good. And don't think God is just testing your willingness. He's also testing your urgency. There are some things that won't wait. That opportunity, that soul, that breakthrough, it's attached to your response time. And while you're waiting to feel ready, someone else's deliverance is hanging in the balance. Tony's voice begins to rise, like a fire burning up from his gut. You don't have forever. Stop playing with this calling like it's casual. This is kingdom. This is purpose. This is life or death for somebody watching you. And you're still stuck in maybe later. Let me say this as plain as I can. Partial obedience is still disobedience. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. And God is not mocked. He sees your hesitation, and he's not impressed with your convenience. But here's the grace in all of it. It's not too late to get back in alignment. The window may have shifted, but the will of God is still calling you. The mission is still waiting. The assignment is still yours, but this time don't wait. If God says go, you go. If he says speak, you speak. If he says move, you move. Just obey God. Obedience is not just about rules. It's not about checking boxes or avoiding consequences. No, obedience is the gateway to purpose. It's how you unlock the very thing you were created to do. You can have dreams, vision boards, mentors, and talent, but none of it matters if you're not willing to obey what God told you to do. There are people walking around with purpose in their hearts, but chains on their feet because they haven't obeyed. And the frustrating thing is, you know there's more, you feel there's more, but until you obey, that more stays locked behind a door you refuse to walk through. The key isn't in another podcast, it's not in another conference, it's not in another fast, it's in your obedience. You've been praying for clarity, God, show me my purpose, and He's saying, I already did, you just didn't like what it cost. We want purpose to feel good. We want it to come with applause and comfort, but purpose starts in sacrifice. Purpose is born when obedience becomes louder than opinion, especially your own. Some of you are waiting for purpose to show up in a flash of light, but most of the time it shows up in a whisper that says, do this, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't match your 5-year plan, it doesn't stroke your ego, it doesn't always feel exciting, but that quiet instruction is the entrance to your destiny. Tony steps closer to the front of the stage, his voice steady but sharp like a scalpel cutting through excuses. You're trying to find your purpose through a process of elimination, trying this, quitting that, running in circles. But obedience simplifies the search. Purpose is never found in rebellion. It's never found in disobedience. You don't stumble into destiny. You walk into it through trust. There's something powerful that happens when you obey God without understanding everything. It's not about where it takes you, it's about what it unlocks in you. Because God is not just trying to use you. He's trying to form you. Obedience changes you, it humbles you, it refines you. It puts you in positions you never could have manufactured on your own. That's why God doesn't give you the whole picture, because He knows you'll try to shortcut the process. But purpose doesn't come through shortcuts, it comes through surrender. You can't negotiate your way into purpose. You can't fake your way into it either. You have to obey your way into it. That's why so many people are gifted but empty, visible but disconnected, promoted but purposeless, because obedience is what sustains what talent can't. Let me be real, there are rooms you were meant to be in, but you disqualified yourself when you said no. There are doors that were opened, but your disobedience made you late, and God in His mercy didn't slam the door, but He did let the moment pass. But even now, He's still calling, the assignment is still active, your purpose didn't expire. It's just been waiting for your yes. You think purpose is about platform. It's not. It's about obedience in secret. It's about what you do when nobody's watching. It's about how quickly you respond when God whispers, go, speak, give, or leave. Because the stage doesn't define purpose, obedience does. Some of you are praying for God to reveal your next step, but you haven't obeyed the last one. Why would God give you more instructions when you haven't followed the first? Purpose is progressive. It unfolds as you go. That's why obedience has to come first. You obey, and then He reveals. You move, and then He provides. You step out, and then He opens the door. You don't obey because you understand. You obey because you trust. And when you trust, you step into alignment. And alignment is where purpose lives. Tony's voice softens, like he's letting the weight of the truth settle deep into the room. You've been circling the same mountain, praying the same prayers, asking the same questions, and God saying, I'm not hiding your purpose, I'm waiting on your obedience. The job won't fulfill you if it's not tied to your obedience. The relationship won't satisfy you if it's not tied to your obedience. The money, the house, the status, it won't give you peace if your heart is not surrendered, because real peace, real fulfillment, real identity, it's not found in the outcome. It's found in knowing you're walking in obedience, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when nobody understands. So stop chasing purpose like it's lost. It's not lost, it's locked inside your obedience. Just obey God. Let me make something real clear tonight, obedience always leads to blessing, but the blessing might not come the way you expect. See, we've gotten too used to the idea that blessings are always shiny, obvious, Instagram worthy, but sometimes the greatest blessings come wrapped in silence, in struggle, or in separation. Just because the blessing doesn't look how you imagined doesn't mean it isn't God. When you obey Him, you unlock something heaven-backed, favor-filled, and enemy-proof, even if it doesn't look like it at first. There are levels of blessing that are only accessed on the other side of obedience. You can pray for favor, fast for breakthrough, worship until your voice goes out. But if you don't obey, you're blocking the very blessing you're begging for. Because God doesn't just bless emotion, He blesses obedience. Some of y'all are asking, why hasn't it happened yet? But let me ask you, have you obeyed yet? You keep asking for the harvest, but you haven't sown the obedience it takes to grow it. You're standing in the field, frustrated that you don't see fruit, but God's saying, you never dropped the seed I told you to sow. And let me tell you what obedience is. Obedience is seed. Every time you say yes to God, you are planting something into the soil of your future, and God is faithful. He never forgets a seed of obedience. You may not see the result overnight. It may take months, even years. But if He promised to bless you, your obedience has already triggered a countdown in heaven. The problem is, we don't like to wait. We want microwave blessings for crockpot obedience. We want overflow without the process. But the blessing is in the building, and the building happens when you obey, even when it's slow, even when it's lonely, even when it costs. Obedience isn't always pretty. It can look like being misunderstood. It can feel like walking away from what everyone else is chasing. It might even mean giving up things that felt good to your flesh. But hear me, whatever obedience costs you, it can never outweigh the blessing it unlocks. Tony slows down now, letting each word land with weight. That door you've been praying for, it's on the other side of obedience. That healing you've been crying out for, it's tied to your yes. That purpose you've been chasing, it's been waiting for your surrender. Don't confuse obedience with manipulation. You don't obey God to get something. You obey God because you trust something. You trust that if He told you to do it, it's not to punish you, it's to bless you. You trust that His plans are better than your comfort. And you trust that the blessing will come, maybe not when you want it, but always when you need it. Now here's the part that will stretch you. Sometimes the blessing isn't a thing. Sometimes the blessing is who you become through the process of obeying God. The peace you never had, the confidence you never felt, the maturity you never walked in. Obedience grows you. It strips you of pride, it strengthens your spirit, and it sets you up to carry what God wants to place in your hands. You've got to be strong enough to steward the blessing, and obedience is God's way of making sure you're ready. Some of you are praying, God, make me ready, and He's saying, obey me and I'll make you ready, and I'll be real with you. Obedience doesn't always feel like increase right away. Sometimes it feels like loss, like Abraham walking up the mountain to sacrifice Isaac, like Moses standing in front of the Red Sea with Pharaoh behind him, like Peter leaving the boat. But that's how God operates. He tests your trust before He releases the treasure. Tony leans forward, looking out over the crowd like he sees someone hesitating right on the edge of obedience. You're standing at a line right now. On one side is safety, on the other side is surrender, and I know it's hard. I know it doesn't make sense. But listen, on the other side of that yes is everything you've been praying for. The blessing is real. The favor is real, but it flows through obedience, not partial obedience, not delayed obedience. Radical, immediate, costly obedience. If God told you to move, move. If He told you to let go, let go. If He told you to start, build, serve, forgive, do it, because your obedience will never return empty. God always honors a surrendered heart, and if you obey, you won't just be blessed, you'll be trusted with more. Just obey God. Let me tell you something that doesn't get preached enough. Obedience isn't just a personal decision, it's a generational one. When you say yes to God, you're not just changing your life. You're changing your bloodline, you're shifting cycles, breaking patterns, rewriting history. You think your obedience is small, but heaven sees it as a legacy move. You don't even realize how many people are attached to your yes. We live in a world that celebrates individualism. Do you, be you, chase your dreams, and that sounds good until you realize that real purpose isn't just about what you accomplish. It's about what you pass down, what you birth, what you leave behind, and the only way to leave something worth leaving is to obey the voice of the one who sees the end from the beginning. Your obedience doesn't just set you free, it makes it easier for the next generation to walk in freedom. When you say yes to God, you're clearing a path for those who come after you. You're removing stumbling blocks they would have tripped over. You're tearing down altars they would have worshipped at. You're showing them what surrender looks like even when it costs everything. Some of you are fighting demons your parents never cast out. You're facing walls they never broke down. And God, in His mercy, chose you to end what they endured so your children won't have to. But here's the truth. You can't kill giants with good intentions. You need obedience. Your children, your nieces, your nephews, even people who aren't related to you by blood but are watching you in the spirit, they are learning what to do with the voice of God by how you respond. You are someone's example. You are someone's blueprint, and if you say yes now, they won't have to bleed later. But if you say no, if you delay, if you run, then everything that's meant to come through, you gets choked by disobedience. Tony's voice grows deeper now, the weight of legacy sitting heavy in every word. I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to wake you up. This is bigger than you. This isn't just about how comfortable you feel or how afraid you are. This is about what happens after you. This is about generations you'll never meet, thanking God you said yes. Think about it. What if Abraham didn't obey? What if Moses said no? What if Mary told the angel, not me? What if Jesus said, I'll pass, you wouldn't be here? I wouldn't be here. That's the power of one yes. One act of obedience can open a floodgate of favor for generations. And don't get it twisted, disobedience is generational too. Rebellion doesn't stop with you unless you stop it. The curse doesn't break because you're aware of it. It breaks when you obey. That addiction, that fear, that pride, it's looking for a resting place in the next generation unless you stand in the middle and say, not on my watch. So when God tells you to forgive, it's not just for you. It's for your future kids who won't grow up learning how to hold grudges. When He tells you to leave that toxic relationship, it's not just about your peace. It's about modeling healthy love for the generation watching. When He tells you to start the business, write the book, launch the ministry, say no to the compromise, it's because there are blessings waiting to be inherited, and they're locked behind the obedience of the current generation. Obedience is inheritance, Every step you take toward God builds something permanent in the spiritual DNA of your family line. Tony's voice softens now, like he's speaking heart to heart. You're not just building a life, you're building a legacy. And that legacy starts with obedience. Don't underestimate your yes. Don't downplay your surrender. Don't think it's insignificant just because it's quiet. Heaven is watching, hell is nervous, and the next generation is depending on it. You have no idea how powerful your obedience really is. You think you're just attending church, just praying, just choosing holiness, but every time you obey, you're planting trees you're great. Grandchildren will sit under. They'll breathe easier because you fought through the fire. They'll stand taller because you built the foundation. They'll love deeper, pray louder, dream bigger because you obeyed. So don't quit, don't delay, don't doubt. You're not just obeying for now, you're obeying for next. Just obey God. When God tells you to do something, He's not asking for agreement, He's asking for obedience. That's where a lot of people get stuck. They wait until it makes sense to obey. They wait until they feel ready. They wait for confirmation, a sign, another word, another voice to validate what God already made clear. But let me tell you something, obedience doesn't wait for understanding. If you need full clarity before you move, that's not obedience, that's control. And God doesn't bless control, He blesses trust. We want the whole map, and God says, take the first step. We want guarantees, and God says, trust my voice. But real obedience begins where understanding ends. God's not interested in explaining everything. He's interested in developing your faith. Because faith grows in the tension between the command and the clarity. Think about Noah. God said, build the ark, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Noah didn't wait for rain. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't go take a poll from his neighbors. He just obeyed. And his obedience saved his family. It preserved humanity. But that blessing only came after he acted in what didn't make sense. That's how God works. He'll tell you to build something in a dry place. He'll tell you to leave before you know where you're going. He'll tell you to give when your hands feel empty. Why? Because He's not trying to just bless you, He's trying to stretch you. He's trying to get your faith out of your logic and into His hands. Some of you have been sitting on an instruction for years because it didn't make sense. And let me be real, so obedience dressed up as waiting is still disobedience. You're not waiting, you're stalling. You're not praying about it. You're avoiding it, and God is saying, I'm not going to change what I told you just because you're scared to trust me. Tony pauses, his voice gentle but steady, like he's reaching into someone's hesitation with truth. You keep saying, but what if it doesn't work? And God is asking, but what if it does? You keep asking, what if I fail? And God's saying, what if you fly? You keep wondering, what if I lose something? And God is saying, you have no idea what you'll gain. We serve a God who sees the end from the beginning. So if He told you to go and you haven't moved, you're walking in delay. If He told you to let go and you're still holding on, you're carrying weight that's not yours to bear. The confusion you feel isn't from God, it's from hesitation. Obedience requires you to move even when your mind is spinning. Even when your heart is trembling, even when your circumstances are screaming the opposite of what God said. You can't obey based on what you see. You have to obey based on who you believe, because here's the thing, if you only obey when it makes sense, your faith has limits. But when you obey without understanding, that's when God releases miracles, that's when you walk into things you never planned. That's when you discover He wasn't trying to take something from you. He was trying to give you something better. Tony leans forward, slowing down, letting every word settle in the room like sacred truth. Sometimes obedience looks foolish until favor falls. Sometimes it feels risky until the reward shows up. Sometimes it hurts until healing follows, but it always requires a move. You cannot step into what God has for you if you're still standing in what makes sense. Some of y'all are stuck in comfort zones dressed up as wisdom. But delayed obedience is just comfortable rebellion. God is calling you higher, and elevation always demands obedience. That next level you've been praying for, it's waiting on your yes. That peace you can't seem to find, it's on the other side of your surrender. That breakthrough you've been crying about, it's tied to the very instruction you've been avoiding. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be God. If He said it, that's enough. If He spoke it, He'll back it. If He commanded it, He'll provide for it. Your job isn't to understand, it's to trust, it's to move. It's to obey. So tonight, I dare you to stop waiting for it to make sense. Stop looking for comfort in something that requires courage. Stop stalling. Start walking. Just obey God.